Good morning, Sami Sasso. How are you?
Good morning, Asilesin. I'm all right, man. How are you?
Good,
nice
good,
morning
good.
to be driving some Porsches.
So, first of all, let's start with a big question. Which one is your favorite?
Look, I didn't get much seat time in the Carrera, but given the significant power difference, definitely the Carrera. Yeah.
I agree.
Just so much more satisfying pull, I guess.
So when we drove over here, I was in the Carrera, right? So I was enjoying the power and everything, but I was thinking, nah, I prefer the
still
more.
prefer that one?
I thought that, and then when we drove to this specific spot and I hopped into the less powerful one, I did miss the 120 horsepower. I did. Do you know why it's called a Carrera?
I do not know why it's called a Carrera.
Because of Porsche's victory of the Carrera Panamericana in the mid-50s.
Okay.
So it's a racing-only engine.
Okay.
What was it like to have to keep the RPMs above 2,500?
It was quite an effort and quite a. Have to remember. Oh wait, I kept looking at the RPM gauge with it's got a little sticker saying this is how the minimum and the maximum, and I was like, why is that there? Oh yeah, that's why that's there. But it didn't feel so. I understand the mechanics why you have to keep it above 2,000, but it didn't feel so demanding once it was a bit below. Like. It's fairly easy for a race engine, very easy to operate. I guess the race engines were a lot different back then, a lot more accessible.
And the fun thing is you can use all the power all the time, right?
Yeah, it's just there instant, and it's just at your tippy toes.
And the speedo in this, the original speedometer, has been sent to Germany to be refurbished. So this one here is just for looks, that's why it doesn't work.
All right, yeah, I didn't notice that until just when we reached the location.
But the speedo in this does work, but I noticed you were going, excuse me, I noticed you were going much slower than the actual speed limit. And I think that might be because in these older cars, you always feel like you're going faster than you actually are.
Absolutely.
Because you hear more, the car feels more alive, you're closer to the ground. It's also more dangerous as well. So you feel like you're going faster than you actually are, I think.
Yeah. And I just want to keep it within legal limits.
Absolutely.
It's always a good thing to do.
Yeah, when we raced to 110 kilometers an hour,
yeah,
that was interesting. That
was nice. Quite the difference, huh? Quite the difference. Like even though I was giving it as much as it could, this one, considering that the RPM counter on that one doesn't give a correct reading, so it was a bit hard to judge the red line, but. Quite the difference between the two, yeah. You were just like cars and cars ahead of me.
The RPM gauge on this car will be fixed for the next owner prior to sale and ownership of transfer, yeah. But yeah, exactly. But that's the thing with these old cars. Even when the speedo does work, it's usually 4 or 5 kilometers an hour off anyway.
Yeah.
I got flashed in this a few weeks ago.
Oh yeah. I'm not going to say how is that possible, but yeah, definitely possible.
Yeah.
Quite a fun car, man. This one, you're right. It's like. And like you mentioned off camera, definitely the seats need to be bucket seats. Even in this one.
Yeah.
Just taking any kind of corner, you just feel yourself kind of hanging onto the steering wheel. Like it's not fun. And because of the leather, it's so slippery, it doesn't have any of that grip, that cloth grip. So you just feel yourself kind of floating around in the seat. And that's my main gripe with classic cars. A lot of them have that. A lot of them have that effect where it's just not.
Lacks the lumbar support.
Yeah, and it's just not designed that way, right? They didn't take that into consideration at the time, I guess.
Although my Lancia Fulvia, you look at the seats and you think, oh, they're like sofas, but then they actually hold you in place. They're weird. They do hold you in place.
I drove your car such a long time ago that I can't really remember.
It'll be ready soon.
Yeah.
Inshallah. Need to sell one of these and pay for the work on the car.
Hopefully, man, hopefully. I'm sure she'll get back on the road eventually.
But you notice how my Lancia Fulvia has 75, 80 horsepower. This has 75 horsepower as well. But you feel the power difference.
I was literally comparing it on the way here because I was just thinking of the same cars I've driven in the same era, right? And the Lancia was the first one that came to mind. Man, worlds apart, man. Like this is like a Super GT compared to the hot hatch that is the Lancia, like literally leagues difference. It's almost uncomparable, like
Germans and Italians, they are different species of people.
Absolutely.
They really are. You hop out of a 66 Lancia and a 66 Porsche. It's 65 in this case. Yeah,
this has such a modern feel to it as well. Like the transmission, the gear changes, you don't feel the lack of power steering. You don't feel any of that stuff. It's just so easy to drive. With the Lancia, it was a bit like you're like, and the gear is like, oh, maybe third, like. So these things are just so finely tuned. It's really, really a pleasure to be behind the wheel.
I think in a straight line or speedy driving with flowier, longer corners, I'd prefer this.
Okay.
But for anything tight, I'd take that.
Okay.
What do you think?
I guess, yeah, it's just you'd be right. That's the kind of, usually when you get the bump in horsepower, that's usually what happens, right? It's much more fun on these long, sweepy roads as opposed to the tight ones. Again, I didn't get much seat time in this, and I was just telling the cameraman, I always find myself when driving a car I haven't driven before, it's always on these short stints, 10 minutes, 5 minutes, 15 minutes, and it's really not enough to judge a car, enough time to really judge a car. You really got to take it up Jace or something, live with it for a bit. You've had a bit more experience with them, obviously, because you've been driving that for quite a while. But I can definitely understand where you're coming from. Like,
so after having driven for 30, 40 minutes in that and hopping into this, what was the difference of power? How did that feel? Was it immediately noticeable?
Immediately noticeable, yeah. Throughout the rev range, you're just pulling, like it even chucks you back a little bit. Like, even though that's plenty fast as well, you know, considering it's 75 horsepower now. Nowadays it's nothing, but it's plenty enough, you know, honestly. It's like...
It's just me or the brakes in this one better as well?
This one, I was also commenting while driving here, to me, brakes in classics are always a problem. Like, I don't know if the modern cars have spoiled me and just they've made me gotten used to such good brakes, you know. And anytime I jump into a classic, I'm like, dude, I feel like I'm about to die every time I step on the brakes, you know. It's like a vague suggestion, you know. Like, and again, I always get the fear of, okay, how far do I press in without locking them? Because I always feel like I'm pressing and they're about to lock, you know? So I don't feel like confident pressing on the brakes. But comparing the two, the brakes in this one are same thing, leagues ahead. Like, stops properly, you don't have to like press all the way, like you get bite right on the top of the throttle, or top of the pedal all the way through, you know? So, but that being said, they're still pretty dodgy in my point of view.
In whatever it is now, 11 or so years of driving classics, I've never locked up the brakes on a car. Never.
Okay, yeah, me neither.
Even with emergency braking and everything. And then if you do feel them locking up, then you just turn your right foot into a sort of ABS. And you lift off a bit and then tap, and squeeze, you know.
Fair enough. No, I've thankfully never had to do that as well. Again, I don't have much experience with classics, but and my R4 I've had to do a few stops a few times, but I don't know, I guess the R4 is 30 years more, 40 years younger than these, so it's definitely a different type of braking system, right? Even though surprisingly it's discs in the front in the R4, and they're brand new discs, so I guess they stop well.
But you know, a Renault 4, yesterday when I picked this up from where it was stored, we went in his Renault 4, so it's not one of the 60s or 70s ones, it's from early 90s. Looking at that though, I mean, just its angle, it just makes you smile.
I think the previous owner gave it that little... Okay. Naturally it has that little stance like that, but a lot of them tend to sit straight as well, so it does have a cool little stance.
Yeah, every time I drive another 60s car, I realize that is my period.
That is your period?
Yeah, it really is. Because you're never going fast enough really to get into trouble.
Yeah.
The cars are still communicative.
Absolutely,
you know?
absolutely.
I mean, this is the complete opposite of the Pontiac GTO, the previous video I did.
Yeah.
You know, literally the opposite tool. Amazing brakes, great steering, super light, but with a third of the power, or less than a third of the power in this case.
I feel I'm more of a modern kind of guy.
90s.
I like going fast.
And 90s.
And classics don't give me the speed that satisfies, that need for speed, you know. Don't get me wrong, these are absolute pleasure to drive, and it's like driving a part of history, you know, but I want that kick. I love that kick. I love the kick that modern 200 plus, 300 plus horsepower cars give you, you know. It's just instant smile, you know. Whereas these, I always see them as, okay, they are performance cars, but at this point in time, I always feel like the most ideal time to drive them would be as lazy Sunday cruise, you know, lazy Sunday morning, you go out by the Corniche and you're just cruising in your classic. This is the way I see classics, and even the performance cars, you know. Unless it's like a full-on race car or something.
I mean, don't get me wrong, we've had our fun in supercars / hypercars together, right? McLaren Speedtail and Diablo, and going on drives on those. The adrenaline shoots through the roof, that's for sure.
That's probably where the addiction is.
Yeah, exactly. But to live with for months or years, I take one of these just because A, the maintenance on those will be a pain. B, you could really
They're
get
not
it.
practical.
You can they're not practical. You could really get into trouble with them as well. When you get one of these at the limit, you can correct it relatively easily.
Absolutely.
A Diablo VT 6 litre or McLaren Speedbird.
If you lose it, you lose it. You're always on the edge.
Exactly. There are many zeros as well.
Absolutely,
you know?
absolutely.
Although this is more valuable than the Diablo. This
Oh
is
yeah, it is.
$650 to $700,000 on this one. The Diablo.
Diablos are sitting around 200, 250,000, right?
Well, the one that we drove would be more like $350,000.
Oh, all right.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, the early Diablos are around like 200, right?
Yeah, for a weak one, a tired one.
For a
They're
tired
just
one,
shooting up, man.
They're just shooting up, man. I remember looking at them at one point, like 10 years ago maybe, and they were like $150,000 or $180,000 for like a good one, you know, relatively low mileage. And I was like, that's accessible, you know. Fast forward 10 years, it's like doubled in price, man. That's insane. Like, it just makes these cars unobtainable for this generation that grew up with them, you know. Or I just got to start like.
And the thing is, you save up for one. Yesterday you talked about the Runner Spider, right?
Yeah, man.
So we were saying that, okay, yeah, well, this is what you need to do. You save up for one, you spend less on this, spend less on that. But what's going to happen is, let's say Runner Spider's what, 40,000 euros now?
About between 40 and 50.
So by the time you've saved up to 40,000 euros, they're going to be 75 or 100.
Exactly.
And then by the time you reach, and there's the same thing with the Countachs as well. People think, right, LP400 first gen, I'm going to save up, I'm going to buy one for $150,000. Right, I made my 150. Oh shit, they're 350,000. Oh shit.
Yeah.
And now they're minimum $1 million.
That's insane.
It is.
So I don't know, where does it stop?
Well, the great trick is that I've discovered is.
So is it only going to go up and up and up and up and up? Or do cars ever devalue at some point? These collectibles?
They plateau or something, but you know, the best solution is make more money. So let's
working on it.
Let's do that. I've decided, we should make more money. I never thought about it before, but you know.
No, we gotta not in terms of make more money. It's easy to say. It's just you gotta make more not expendable money. Lack of term. Money that's extra. You know, like obviously there's the cost of living, and I mean, it's hard to justify dropping $100,000 on a car. You know.
Yeah, but if you look
if you only have that $100,000, you know.
Right, but let's say in the last 10 years we're calm. We just daily drove a normal Japanese plastic box for a while and saved the amount. We would have, the smiles per gallon is different, and we would have had less fun along the way.
No, but I'd rather drive a broken Clio than don't get me wrong. I do have a Mazda daily, and she's the MVP of the collection because it's just the car that goes, you know. But it would never be my only car. You know? No way. I would have a beat up car any day as a weekend, even if it's just limping. Than only driving.
Make no mistake, I give good advice. I don't take my own good advice.
I guess we just gotta step up our game, man. Just work our way up the ladder, make the big money, and buy the big cars.
And wear Porsche t-shirts while driving Porsches.
Wear Porsche t-shirts, of course. It had to happen.
Yeah.
You gave me this t-shirt.
Yeah. And Amir gave it to me. And
it's a nice t-shirt. Fits me well.
Yeah, it does. Good on you. Yeah.
But I mean, the RS Spider is pretty obtainable compared to these kind of things, you know. Like I think 40,000 euros, you can reach there. You can definitely reach there.
Yeah, exactly.
Just have to find one in good condition. Yellow has to be yellow.
Agreed.
And I was debating whether to look for the one with the windscreen or without the windscreen. I think with the windscreen will probably be easier to register and all that.
Yeah, and also easier to live with.
Yeah,
without a
you
windscreen.
Always have to have a helmet or goggles.
No, you don't want that.
You're right.
No, you want
all the way.
And you know, you're not just going to sit on it and look at it in a garage. You're actually going to drive it. You definitely want it to be usable.
I'll do the same thing I did with the Clio. Just beat the shit out of it.
As you should.
In a good way.
Cars are meant to be driven. I prefer that in terms of the tightness and the slower speed stuff, the handling and everything. It has more direct steering as well. But I can't help but miss the power in that, man.
It's definitely a significant power bump. It's like 50 horsepower, right? It's 120, 75.
45 horsepower.
And a bigger engine, man, so it's a bigger, like more torque, more everything. It's just definitely, what was it? No replacement for displacement.
The Walid Afani phrase. Yeah.
And I think at this power point, it makes a big difference.
Because it's so light, you feel every horsepower difference.
Exactly. And I think I would definitely take this over that one. Even though the steering is a bit crooked, but it's okay. But I need to drive it a bit more, so.
Well, this is a fresher restoration, so you need to iron out all the creases and,
all right.
get the wasp away from my bright yellow shoes. You need to iron out all the creases and stuff when you restore a car, because when it's freshly restored, it needs at least, in my opinion, 1,000 kilometers. Although this has done 2 millimillion UAEs, so it's done 3,000 kilometers since restoration. But still, you iron out certain creases and stuff like that. But I agree, man, once this thing comes on cam, it's something else. That's why yesterday when we were in convoy from where the car was stored to come to my area, as soon as there was an opening, I had to explore it. It was intoxicating, man. You know,
I tried following you in the R4.
And it just, you know, I love cars, especially older cars, that when you're driving them, you just turn into someone else. You're like, ugh. And then I was going on a faster right corner, and I was making I'm by myself. There's no cameras, no one's watching me, but I was just like, ooh, I thought I must look like an idiot. And I looked at myself in the mirror, and, ooh, yes, this is amazing. You know?
There are some cars that just make you feel like
absolutely,
that.
Man.
Absolutely. Some cars, like, put your foot down, you're just like laughing like a lunatic, man. It's hilarious.
If I were a car enthusiast and I'm just cruising along and then suddenly these two things go by at a relative pace, it must just be such a spectacle.
Man, like that guy in the Corvette the last time, man, we were coming back from one of the shoots. And
we're in the Testarossa?
In the Testarossa. We were in the Testarossa, and he floors it, and both of us laughing like kids, man, kids.
Exactly.
What a guy, that was nice.
Yeah, that was cool. I still have a picture of it somewhere. That thing must have been 800 horsepower at least.
I love bumping into petrol heads like that.
Absolutely.
The other day I got a thumbs up from a guy driving a Mazda 2 exactly like mine. And he like pulled over, he looked at me and he was like, hey.
Did you tell him I have the same one as well?
We were driving both the same car.
Oh, right, nice. Yeah, super.
So he's like, hey. I was like, man, so even these simple, basic cars, there's still a love in there, you know, in the sense that when there's two of them of the same that are driving around, people like, every time I try to, when I'm driving my Mazda 2, I see another one, I try to go up to them and like, but they're just totally oblivious. They're like, oh, who's this fucking lunatic trying to make friends with me, you know, for what purpose, you know, like, and I try to be like, we have the same car. They don't get it, but I guess I found the guy who was exactly the same, red with the same wheels and the same everything, so it was like, there was two clones driving by. It was,
what I love about
those moments like are
absolutely
priceless.
Because otherwise, if you're driving on a public road, yes, you know, logically speaking, that there's a human being behind that steering wheel that's piloting it, that has a life and everything, and you know, has their problems, has their flaws, has their positive attributes. But then when you're in an older car, let me rephrase. When you see these common civilians driving on the road and everything, you don't actually really feel like, oh no, that's a human being with a story and a life and everything.
Yeah.
You just think, oh, okay, it's a car and there's someone behind it and they're annoying me because they're not driving the way I want them to drive. But when there's a barrier there, right? But when there's a honk honk and a thumbs up and a little brief conversation at a traffic light, that barrier is broken. And you're like, no, that's a human being there. And we've just,
absolutely.
We're all minding our own business in our big metal boxes on our way to work or on our way to court or whatever it is. But once that barrier is broken, it's nice, man. It's a little connection. It puts both parties in a good mood, you know. And when it's two cars that are interesting and old, that's when it's brilliant as well. It's like, hey, I'll have met friends.
And I think instantly, if you see a guy driving a nice car, no matter what it is, instantly I give them that attribute of, hey, they're a cool guy to have bought such a car and to be driving it and to whatever. But
who value experience over showing off.
Yeah, well, that's the hope, but some people, you know, everybody's like that. Especially not in like a Huracan or something. If I see a Huracan, I'm like, rental.
Rental or crypto, yeah, especially if it's 4 digit or 5 digits, usually rental or crypto. But you know, there's, what's his name, Ihab, Classic Alpha UAE on Instagram. So I met him when I was with Sit Bande in my Lancia Fulvia, probably 2016. We went out to shoot it early morning on a weekend. And we're on that highway overpass thing in front of Dubai Mall. And then suddenly we see this lovely little Alfa GTV 2000. I think it's a 72. I'm like, no way. So 2 little pretty Italian cars. And I go, beep, beep. And like me, he was smoking and listening to his Bluetooth radio, you know. And he goes, and, you know, because he pretends he's Italian. He said, come. He said, follow me. Okay. And we went down and we followed him down and we parked the 2 cars next to each other and we chatted, exchanged numbers, and we've been friends ever since, man. Cars unite people. It's that Salamandran chap, the Mexican dude.
Man, for sure.
They absolutely
I know so many people in the community that some of them, I'm ashamed to say, I don't know their name. I don't know what they do, but I know they drive this car. And I know they're super fun to talk to, and it's like instant friendship, you know. It's a lot of the people you meet at these Flat 12 coffee meets or drives or things like that, it's just instantly approachable because the common topic is their cars, and they're just great guys, and I love to hear their story and what's everything behind why you bought this car.
I think there are parallels with other passions as well. I mean,
for sure.
And you know, it's just we're immediately united by a topic that we all love, and then that breaks the ice immediately.
Like there's There's no like, barely any small talk. Just hey, when did you buy this? How long have you had it? Blah, blah, blah. What is it? What do you think about it?
Have you ever thought of buying the quad cam instead of the twin
Yeah,
cam?
yeah.
No. Why do you go the carburetor? Not that. Yeah.
So which one are you going to jump into now?
I want you to have more time in that.
Oh yeah, and in any case, you need to do the recording in that one.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure, absolutely.
Yeah,
I'm
I
more
think
than happy
we'll we'll enjoy the road. We just filled them up. So
We can head down that way to go to the long road.
Yeah,
and get some long
exactly.
stretches.
My speedo in this is correct, so I'll be driving just below the limit.
Alright.
So use me as reference. So you can use me as reference.
Yeah.
But yeah, I want you to experience that a bit more.
sure.
It's cool that it's on Lebanese plates, to be honest.
Yeah, man, that gives it all the more character.
Yeah, I love the little details of the flag. It's
Yeah,
done in a, you know. I always love it when you have something very valuable and very special, but you treat it kind of normally.
Yeah.
It
That's the best
adds
thing about
adds to it. It's like daily driving the older cars that we drive. You know, we're super used to them and everything, but you know, one would think, oh, this is an occasion, and you must no. But owner of this car, great dude, man, just loves his Porsches, has a bunch of them. Had some kids draw on it. I think it's cute, and I love it. I love it.
That's nice. I like the decals.
I'm trying to sell it, so unfortunately I should ask him to remove all that stuff because technically it shouldn't be on there, but it's also part of its story. So if someone who appreciates the story and history of the car and it's cool,
Surely
they'll keep
you'll
it.
find someone for that.
If I were putting it in auction and stuff, no, I'd have to remove them all, but
okay.
but it's great. But this car was actually, it was delivered new to Germany, and in my mind, a Porsche that's delivered new in Germany or a Ferrari that's delivered new in Italy, I always feel it might be a bit better. I don't know why. People in the factory are making extra efforts and go, it's not for export, it's for our people, we'll make it better. Or in the case of this, you know, it's for the fatherland, so we'll take good care of it. But yeah, and then the car was fully restored by a Porsche center in the region, Porsche Classic Center, authorized,
Okay.
and the engine was shipped to Germany to be fully rebuilt, and the cost, you know, of doing that, just sending the engine and getting it fully rebuilt, you could have bought one of these.
Okay.
You know, $100,000.
That's the one thing I don't
657.
look forward to if I ever start buying these kind of cars,
Yeah.
is the maintenance cost and all that. So already I'm looking at what's to me astronomical cost of repainting and restoring the R4.
But money no
So-
object, would you pay 6.5 times more for this? Money no object.
Absolutely not. Money no object, I wouldn't buy either of these.
If money's no object, you're going to have 50, 60, 70 cars, no?
Yeah, but those are definitely lower on the list
Okay.
than a bunch of other cars that I'd like
Okay,
to get
so
first.
before we wrap up then,
Yeah.
one final question.
Sure.
Money no object, you had to buy a car from the 60s.
From the 60s.
Yeah, what would it
Miura.
be? Miura, no hesitation.
No
man.
hesitation.
SV didn't exist in the 60s. It was
Yeah. So
70 onwards.
with 70s onwards, definitely a Miura. Yeah.
Miura
Just
S?
because of it's a Miura, man. It's like the first whatever supercar, I guess people call it, right?
Okay, 60s Porsche.
60s Porsche.
You had to buy 60s Porsche, money no object.
I'll be honest with you, I'm not very familiar with 60s Porsches other than these and the early 911s, right? So there was the 4-pots and there was the flat 6 as well. And they didn't have any of those like special RSs.
There was the
back
R.
then. There was the R.
And the one on your
911R.
t-shirt, the ST, may have been. I'd say go
69 or
911R.
911R. If you're saying 911R.
780 odd kilos, man. Nearly 200 horsepower, hell yeah.
Holy shit.
Yeah.
708.
I'd go for one of these and I'd drive the hell out of it. And I'd get it in Smyrna green,
I want something that can kick the tail out.
the 911R.
Yeah.
And we'll take them both out and we'll draw on them and let kids sit in them and
Absolutely.
maybe even conceive in them. All right, thank you all, 7 people who are watching. Thank you, Mr. Sasso.
Thank you, thanks for having me.
I think we should drive some cars and have a spot of lunch. What do you think?
Let's
do it. Thank you, Pine kanan to all, and Nani.
Thanks for having me. Bye.